First of all, I want to welcome everybody to this little workshop here. I'm Justin James. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer, and every time there's a new update to Ableton Live, part of our certification is to do some kind of event to showcase the new features of Live 11 or of Live in general. And in this case, obviously, it's Live 11, which is due to come out fairly soon. I have the great opportunity to do it with a pretty cool community that I became part of over this this COVID break, and that's the Circle Alive in Bloom community. And this is a community put together by Sebastian Mullaert and his team, and started with a master class or a type of internship, not internship, but guidance program that started in May maybe, and we did a 10-week intensive master classes on live production and live performance, and kind of the blurry lines in between the two. And it certainly changed the way I thought about music, how to make music, how to perform music. And yeah, so this community has kind of stemmed from that idea. So yeah, I'll get right into it. I'm gonna showcase to you Ableton Live 11, the brand new features that come with it. And if anyone's got any questions in the chat or in the Zoom right now, don't hesitate to ask. Otherwise, this is going to end up on YouTube as well, and so it's on YouTube. You know, don't hesitate to ask any questions in the comment section. All right, so I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to start this with basically a PowerPoint presentation, and what I'm going to share is kind of step by step all the different new elements of Live 11, and then once we're done that quick slideshow, we'll dive into a kind of a practical explanation of everything inside of Live 11 itself. So we'll get going with that right now. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share my desktop and share. All right. And we'll get rid of this and close this. And I'm going to tab over to the PowerPoint presentation. All right, so here we go. What's new in Live 11 by Justin James, Ableton Certified Trainer, and yeah, part of the In Bloom community via Circle of Live. So obviously, my name's Justin James. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer. I'm a producer and audio engineer. I've released records on Richie Houghton's Minus label, Dubfire, SciTech, and I also run my own record label, Refused. So yeah, if you want to look up Refused, and I'm always open for demos, and especially within these great communities that are growing. And my contact information is right there, justin@justinjames.ca. Okay, so we're going to get right into what's new in Live 11. Okay, step one, or the first major thing that's in Live 11 is comping. And what comping is basically the layering, the multi-track recording of of multiple takes to find the perfect take. So comping, Live organizes multiple passes of an audio or MIDI performance into individual takes. Pick the best moments of each performance and combine them to create your perfect take, or approach sound design in a new way by splicing together random samples from your library. Comping is a really interesting new component to Live 11, and obviously in a second I'll show you one way to use comping, but there's multiple ways that you can. And along the same line, there's also link track editing, which is kind of like comping, but instead of comping within a single track and a single take, or a track lane, it's over multiple tracks. So link track editing, link 2 or more tracks to edit their content simultaneously. This makes editing multi-tracked instruments and performances with multiple musicians easy and fast while keeping everything in time across tracks. This feature also works with for MIDI tracks. Okay. And then another huge component of Live 11 is multi-polyphonic expression, or MPE. MPE compatibility, basically what happens is all bend, slides, and pressure from each individual note in a chord add subtle expression variations, morph between chords, and create evolving sonic textures. If you're familiar with the company Roley, has created these MPE playing devices, and it basically is just a way to add like crazy amounts to expression to your playing. And Live itself has 3 new MPE compatible devices: wavetable, sampler, and arpeggiator. Use pushes pad pressure to control parameters per note. If you're a push owner, this is going to make push even that much more integral in your setup. Yeah, and I'll show you in the next part, the expression view. You can actually add and edit pitch, timbre, and pressure variations of individual notes directly in a new tab in the clip detail view. So even if you do not have an MPE compatible player instrument, you can actually mimic those that playing inside of Live itself in the clip detail view. There's some new devices: hybrid reverb, spectral resonator, and spectral time. These are super cool. In fact, spectral resonator and spectral time have a brand new kind of graphic window that we'll talk about later, that kind of shows you what's happening, or gives you a visual representation of what's happening in a really neat way. And in playing around with it today a little bit more, the ability to play it like an instrument with MIDI is pretty amazing, and we'll talk about that a little bit with the freeze function in spectral resonator. And then there's 2 super new cool devices that fall in the patches or in the packs category, that's inspired by nature. 6 playful instruments and effects that use natural and physical processes as their inspiration, created in collaboration with Dylan Baston. We're going to dive into one of those devices today, and it's super cool. And then Pitch Loop 89, based on early digital effects processor. This device creates jittery glitch effects, delayed digital shimmers, and outlandish vibrato to add character to sounds in the studio or on stage, created in collaboration with Robert Henke, who's one of the original developers of Live, and you might know him as the artist name Mono Lake. Then there's a few more devices: Chorus Ensemble, Redux, and Phaser Flanger, and they've been bulked up and modified to do some amazing things. And then rack improvements. This is a huge thing for me. What you can do now inside of Ableton's racks, you can store macro snapshots, and it'll be better for me to show you how that's done. And typically the racks were stuck at 8 macros. Now you can actually go up to 16, or actually reduce it down to 1 macro, which will be amazing for performance. If you have a certain performance knob or whatever, you'll see that this is pretty cool. And then the randomized macro values, kind of married with the macro snapshots, is a really special combination. I'll show you how that works as well. And then this is interesting because Live has always had to be, for the most part, the heartbeat of a band or the heartbeat of a performance. If you went to go see bands back in the day that implemented Ableton into their setup, the drummer even would have to, basically click track himself to Ableton, and then Ableton would be the time for the whole band. Everyone would play along with Ableton. Well, this is kind of flipped on its head. Now Ableton has the potential to tempo follow. So Live can actually listen to and adjust its tempo based on incoming audio in real time, making it a dynamic part of the band instead of the tempo source that everyone must follow. So this has been kind of huge. So instead of everything listening in and syncing with Ableton, now Ableton can actually listen out and sync to whatever's happening outside. So really, really neat for bands and kind of improvisational musicians. And then there's some new sounds. VoiceBox, a comprehensive collection of contemporary vocal samples from multiple voices. A set of playable vocal instruments and effects track designed for vocal processing. Mood reel, evocative layered instruments that combine organic and synthetic sounds with textural elements to add mood, space, and movement to productions. And Drone Lab, sustained tonal and textural samples, generative noise, multi-sampled instruments, plus devices and effects tracks designed for experimentation. New sounds too, upright piano, brass quartet, and string quartet. Upright piano is a close recorded for an intimate feel, a classic sound that is at home in many styles of music, created in collaboration with Spitfire Audio. All three of these are created with Spitfire Audio, brass quintet or quartet and string quartet. Okay. And then finally, there's a great deal of updated sounds. So Live has an updated core library. Live's core library is expanded with a focus on contemporary music production, including new drum kits, instrument racks, audio effect racks, grooves, loops, and MIDI clips, plus improved browsing makes sounds easier to find. The core library obviously is a lot of it has been updated to match some of the new improvements in Live as well. So once we dive in, you'll see this. And updates to the AAS instrument interfaces. The user interfaces of all instruments made in collaboration with applied acoustic systems has been updated, and then updated packs. So there's a whole bunch of updated packs. Again, they've been updated to work with Live 11 and the new elements of Live 11. So Drum Booth features a new MIDI drum library and mixed ready presets. Grand piano, electric keyboards now come with MIDI licks, phrases, and progressions. MIDI drum grooves and instrumental parts have been added to chop and swing, skitter and step, and drive and glow. And more additions. We talked about this a little bit already. Edit loops into multiple clips simultaneously, focus on a single clip in context, and easily transpose entire arrangements in one piano roll. And improve clip detail view. New tabs for note parameters, follow actions, envelopes, and MPE provide a clearer overview of and access to parameters and properties of a clip. And improve CPU metering. We're going to go over this for sure. This is super cool. An updated master display can now show you current and average CPU usage, plus per track CPU meters show you which tracks in a set use the most processing power. And this is pretty amazing. If you guys are familiar with freezing and flattening, when your computer is starting to max out on CPU usage, Live's ability to freeze and flatten can obviously help save a great deal of that CPU power. But sometimes we're unsure which ones are actually hogging up all the CPU. So with the per track CPU meters, you can see which ones are being clunky, and you can certainly reduce the usage there. And finally, keys and scales. Use scales directly in Live's MIDI editor as a guide for reference. This is linked to push and can be changed per clip. And this is super cool too. For a while now, you were able to select your scale on Ableton Push, but you weren't able to do it inside of Live's MIDI clips. So now everything works seamlessly together. So you can actually select beforehand what scale you want to play in, and that scale isn't stuck to the entire live project. Is actually done per clip. And speaking of push, There's with push 2, there's visualizations for new devices. See visualizations of key parameters in hybrid reverb, spectral resonator, and spectral time on push's color display, and control them directly from the hardware. And then, and this is what I mentioned earlier, key and scale sync. The key and scale feature in Live 11 is linked to push and can be changed per clip. And also changes to push, polyphonic aftertouch support. This goes directly with MPE. So apply different levels of aftertouch to individual notes when using wavetable, sampler, or arpeggiator, and supported VSTs for more nuanced and dynamic performances on push. Right. So any MPE supported VSTs that you plug in can also be controlled using aftertouch, using push. And I mentioned earlier, see up to 16 macros, and Live 11 access macros 9 to 16 from a second page after the rack page with macros 1 to 8. The second page appears automatically once you map more than 8 macros. So we're used to working with 8 macros, and if you're using push, those 8 macros would be on push's screen. Now you can just turn the pages to do so. And for you Max for Live people, new API additions. A redesigned MPE compatible note API gives Max for Live access to Live 11's new note features, probability, velocity, deviation, and release velocity. You can also now access slices of samples of a sample loaded in Simpler, a clip or samples, warp markers, and much more. And MIDI channel routing is now possible to route MIDI to and from Max for Live audio effects and instruments. Input and outputs are routable and show up in a track's MIDI from and MIDI to choosers. And last one from Max for Live, improvements in device improvements for device creators. A new live scope object adds an oscilloscope to the object library. Double-clicking an error in the Max console jumps to a cursor device causing an error. A new Max for Live category in the inspector window allows developers to more likely indicate which systems their devices can be used on, and much more. And performance improvements. A complete overhaul of Max for Live's user interface integration means a smoother experience when working with Max for Live devices, including improvements to focus, positioning, scrolling, behavior, and performance. So that right there is the end of the slide presentation, kind of the nuts and bolts of everything. And now what I'm going to do, I am going to dive into the actual, I'm going to demonstrate some of the features that we talked about there. I won't demonstrate any and every feature, but I'm going to show you some of the ones that we have talked about so far. I think the ones that are most practical to use in for this session. So so starting from the top here, what I've done is I've taken a simple base element here, and I've created all this is kind of the starting of a track. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to use these various elements to kind of demonstrate the new properties of Live 11, but also kind of put it together in a track form. So you guys can hear. I'll go one by one here. All I started with here was a kick drum. So there's absolutely nothing on that kick drum that is coming from anything new in Live, but that's going to be our backbone in a little bit. Okay, so so to start off here, or the second thing that I created was a bass line. Okay, so what I did in order to do this, as you can see, inside Live's clip editor, I went and I was able to select a scale. So what I did from here, this is the typical piano roll for that we're used to seeing in Ableton Live. Okay, but now I can select a scale. So I select the scale here, and then in this case, I wanted this scale to be C minor. So, and then what happens is still the entire piano roll is here. And then what you can do is you can fold to the scale. And then you could also fold to the notes that have been created. So in this case, or notes that are used for the bass line or whatever sound you're creating. So in this case, I'll hit play, and this is the bass line that I came up with. So okay, and you'll see this is pretty simple. I haven't this obviously this production hasn't got all the received all its nuances and everything, and things are pretty much a 2-bar loop right now, but we'll talk about that a little bit more too and how we can vary that. So so that was this was the kind of patch or whatever that I found worked as a bass line. You can hear these two together here. Just run these together. Okay, so that was my start. But what I did, the way I was able to find this one that I call my sub bass line was I had loaded a patch in here, and what I did was I started just randomizing parameters. So so in this case, if you hit randomize here, you can see what's happening as I hit randomize. It is flipping around the macros inside Live to create a different sound. So now if I play this, and I kind of like this one for maybe during a breakdown or something or another new part. So what I can do now that this is here, I can actually create that as a brand new variation, and it's called a snapshot. So now I have a snapshot variation in here that I can do. So as I'm triggering through these, I'm basically creating brand new presets for myself or brand new snapshots. And all of these can be resaved inside of this this group here. So so, and as you can see as well, so those are my snapshot variations made by random. And then obviously if I needed to, if let's say I go back to my subby one, and I got to run it here. Let's say I wanted to open up the overdrive a little bit. Okay. I'm more than welcome to create a new one here, a new snapshot right here. So I can call this, oops, I can call this one sub, and then with some drive to it. You know, if I wanted kind of a harsh transition between the two as opposed to you know, modulation of the overdrive over time or whatever. So yeah. And what you can do, the other part of when we're talking about macros, is we could actually add, as I said, up to 16 macros, or we can reduce to one macro if we chose, right? Obviously, what would happen in this case, you would have to start off once you've created this group, you would have to organize your macros as you see fit, and you could actually just start with a blank template of macros and build from there. But this is something that's brand new and it's great for performance. And again, if maybe you just want a device that has one macro, so now you have that one knob that's available for you to turn. I'm turning it on my Ableton Push right now, right? Or you could have it up to, as I said, up to 16. And there would be some planning in there for you, obviously, how to create it, how to create your macros and how to set those up. So yeah, so random, creating new variations, and adding and subtracting macros. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this nice little subby bass line here. All right. Okay, so one of my favorite new additions to Live is one of my I'll get to those questions after, guys. Okay. I have a few questions there, and we'll figure it out. Okay. So secondly, we go over to our shakers here. So in this case, I have some shakers. Oops. Okay. So I have some shakers here going. Okay. So another new element of live is your ability. Obviously, we've always been able to play around with velocity. You can see these are the velocity here is at its maximum right now. Okay. So I can now randomize my velocity. So with a simple click, velocity can be randomized. So in this case, you can see now we're getting like this interesting new rhythm that's happening. It's a little bit different, obviously, than just some really high velocity set maracas or shakers, right? And we could take this one and we could do the same thing, and I could select over the entire realm. And in doing so, you can see that there's a lot of variation now to my maracas. All right, so random velocity is a huge new one for me. And then there's also randomizing of probability, which we're going to get into in a little bit, or excuse me, probability or chance. So we have chance down here. All right. So, and again, if we start building this track together. I'll bring down the audio in case we're having a little bit of audio situations here. So just go through and kind of hit everything one by one. So so in this case, we were able to use some randomization on our velocity. Okay. So next door to my hats, again in my drum bus still, I have some shaker, or excuse me, just closed hats. And you can see these closed hats are pretty simple, other than you'll see a few kind of fill areas. So these are happening on the ands. So so what I've done here, if I scroll up to my chance, okay, what I've done, you could see, is I've created a little bit of probability or chance in the at the end of the fourth bar and at the end of the eighth bar. So what's gonna ultimately happen is I'll create a little bit of variation with my hats. So things will run through. So we'll start with this running through. And you're gonna see when it gets to the end of the fourth. So both of the, all three hats were hit there. Now there's gonna be another fill here. So there's only two hit there. So what happens is every time this passes, it's going to change the potential of what is being played. So and you can see that these are somewhere around 50%. So none were hit there. I'm going to drop one more in here with a little higher probability. And it creates these little kind of interesting fills or changes. And I know it's on something as simple as hi-hats, but you can see it's just something to kind of a little bit of ear candy for the listeners. Okay. So, and again, if we put this all together, starting to get a little bit to the start of a track here. I'm going to flip right over here to this one. I have because we'll still talk about probability, and again, this is one of my favorite probability situations right here. And so what I've done here is I have taken just a chord. Obviously, we're still in C minor, and I've taken a chord here. And what I've done is typically what would happen here. Obviously, all three notes are engaged. So all three notes should play simultaneously. But what I've done is each note has a different probability. So you can see this, the probability, this one's somewhere around between 50 and 75. This one's between 75 and 100%. And this one's between 25 and 50%. I think I had those just set to random. So what's going to happen now, I'm going to create this interesting progression that I won't even know what's happening because I'm rolling the dice with Ableton here to kind of create something. So in this case, I'm going to hit play, and you're going to hear a chord progression happening every, every 4 bars. You know, that's unique and kind of morphing and evolving. And the music that I'm loving right now kind of fits into that framework. So here's a start.
Sorry for intruding, Justin, but we can barely hear it.
Give me 1 second.
Justin?
Yes?
Try going in the top left corner of Zoom, there's preferences. Under audio, there's a background noise reduction setting.
Yeah.
If you take that off, it might help with capturing more of the sound from the computer on your microphone.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Preferences, background and no. Audio. So it's on auto right now, so turn it
low, perhaps?
Low. Okay. And I should be sharing computer audio right now. It shouldn't be coming through my microphone, correct? So,
you can route your Ableton's audio directly to Zoom's preferences as well. So we will hear basically the clean signal from your Ableton.
Yeah, and that's what I intended to do. One moment again. Audio.
In your Ableton preferences, check if the audio is routed out to Zoom.
Zoom output or Zoom audio device?
I think it should be Zoom audio device, but I'm not 100% sure.
Let's see what happens.
Nothing.
Yeah, I'm getting nothing on my side either. Let's try the other one, or we'll have to just continue.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Success.
All right. And can you guys hear my mic?
Perfectly.
Okay. Well, there we go. So hopefully that'll make it better. All right. So now I know. Okay. So you'll hear. So what I was getting at again was we have some chords running here, and in this case we have three three notes playing simultaneously. But what's happening is because of the way we have set up chants, that the probability of the way the notes are playing is going to create like an evolving chord progression, you know. And obviously right now we only have three notes selected, but it could be multiple. And then so sometimes there's going to be no notes, sometimes there's going to be one note, sometimes there's going to be two notes, sometimes there's going to be three, and so on and so forth. So you'll see in this case, and so on and so forth. And this would keep going forever. And you can kind of again based on some of the things we've been talking about with the in Bloom community, and just some super interesting things to work with here. You can take these things and run them for as long as you want to run them, and they become amazing performance loops. And obviously not just with pads, but it could be with anything else. And in fact, here I have some along the same line of probability. You can see probability is one of my favorite things right now. But I took these same notes, and actually what I'll do too is I'm gonna manipulate I'm just gonna randomize the velocity. So I have these four kind of hits on this weird space noise thing. And I have it. I think I have it at some an odd, yeah, like kind of a odd loop point to kind of create some interesting underneath. But I have these four notes selected, and again, probability is set up, or randomness is set up for all four of these. So when I'm playing this on this space noise, each hit is coming in at a different time, and you can see it missed it that time. And again, you could make these the time that this going longer, just to create these interesting hits that are happening kind of randomly, and creating some ear candy kind of sitting underneath the track in whichever way you would like to do it. So heading back this way, so that was all the chants and velocity kind of mixed in with the randomization. So we're having better audio now, guys. Can you give me a yes that we're having better audio, and I can feel better about myself?
A lot better.
All right, cool. So yeah, so now we're heading over, and the interesting thing here is someone in the In Bloom community a little while ago was talking about Wu-Tang Clan kung fu vocals, and I thought it was kind of interesting, and I was going to actually use the Ableton Live set that this individual had created, but I don't think it was collect all and saved, because I couldn't find the audio sample. So I was like, I just started going. I was looking for my own. So I ended up finding this one. I thought it was pretty cool. So let me deactivate all the devices here first, just to kind of show you guys. So so this right here is a pretty simple one, but I thought it was cool. And it's a girl in Chinese saying, if you can kill him, kill him. If you can't, run. So I thought it was kind of cool, and she's saying it in Chinese. So here's the, I might have transposed this a little bit, but we'll see. All right, so I kind of wanted to work with that, and so what I did was I took this sample, and then I just put this is a brand new instrument or effect device by Robert Henke. called the pitch loop 89. And so I added this to it, and you'll hear now. Oh, excuse me. When I added the, you can hear that there's some crazy tape delay and a whole bunch of weird things going on, but it gives you this ability to freeze, and this is a little bit different than the spectral resonator that we're going to talk about next, but in its ability to freeze things, or spectral time to freeze. But it's got some freeze functions to do some interesting things. And you can do some interesting things. And then I kind of married this with, this is a brand new spectral resonator. And you can see this is pretty cool, and just the visualization it gives you. So once the sample runs through, once the audio runs through this, so it kind of creates obviously some harmonics and some real interesting things on top of it. And I just have this actually non-Ableton third-party CLA vocal for this bus, but we won't have to worry about that right now. So then what I wanted to do is I want to couple this kind of loopy vocal with this brand new device here in the Inspired by Nature collection. And what happens here is you load in a sample, whatever the sample is. So in this case, I took this Kung Fu sample and loaded it into vector grain. And what vector grain does, and I would be lying if I said I knew exactly how this thing worked, but it's pretty cool. So, and it kind of reminds me of the granulator in some way. That's been with Ableton for a while, another one designed by Robert Henke. So what I've done is I've loaded this sample in, and you can see what's happening if we go down to 1 grain. You can hear this sample moving left to right, and as it heads deeper into the to the bottom corners, it gets quieter, and as it moves forward, it gets louder. So it's a super interesting device, and you can add multiple grains. And you can pull those grains back. And again, I'd be lying if I said exactly I knew how it worked, but then we can go over here to the attractor. And when we go to the attractor, what happens is that it will move away from the center, but then when you ask it to come back to the attractor, it'll move at whatever pace to the center. So if we have multiple grains moving, you'll see that they're going to start moving in various directions, and they should be able to separate. But if we go back here, there we go. And as they move around, we can get them to move eventually wherever we can actually move the attractor wherever we want. And you'll see we're going to bring them to the front right speaker loud. Which I thought is super unique, and even more than super unique, I thought it was just a super fun way to kind of play around with sound design. And obviously in this case, I'm just using a vocal sample, but imagine throwing whatever type of one shot in there that you'd like to. So there's lots of interesting things that can happen with that. So yeah. So, and again, as we're starting to put this track together piece by piece, bit by bit. And wherever we're gonna get with this. All right. So I'm gonna move over here. Again, this is another cool thing. I'm just using sampler here, and I've created this little blip. Okay, and I've also used some probability here. So the probability of it hitting somewhere above 50%. So every time it runs its chorus, it's going to either hit or not hit on that note to kind of create some some unexpectedness in the music. So if the drier signal is like this, and what I've done is I've added spectral time to this, and I've added the hybrid reverb. Okay, so spectral time is here. This is, this is spectral time, and here is the reverb. And obviously, we can create some interesting textures again using these two. And it's going to come around real soon. And then what I wanted to show you guys, I can actually capture. So right now, audio has stopped running, and now I've captured I've frozen it, and I've captured this this piece of audio, and I could start to play it like an instrument. I have to grab a little bit thicker piece of audio here. Let's see. There we go. So now I've captured this, and if you're into making drones or anything interesting, we can capture these pieces of audio. And do some hopefully interesting things with it. And again, just the ability to experiment in here, it's pretty amazing. Okay, and we're gonna flip over now to this lead. Okay, to this this pop here. So here's the last element, kind of big last element that I want to show you. There's some probability happening here too, and we're going to talk about that. So I've created this this weird little melody. Obviously, it's unpredictable because of the changes in probability and the changes in velocity. Well, velocity would be looped around, but you'll see that what's happening here and so on and so forth. Okay, so what I've done there is created something again that's kind of unpredictable. But so what we can do is I'm going to show you guys the take lanes here. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I have these notes here. I have these notes programmed over here. Those exact same notes, just copy and pasted here. Okay, and so what I'm going to do in this case, I am going to record this MIDI to an audio track. So I'm going to record what's being played here into an audio track. So I'm recording in from there, and I'm going to make sure this is what you have to do. It's simple. You just have to show your take lanes. So take lanes is on, and I should be able to arm this track. And as soon as this goes way up top, I can hit record. All right, and we'll stop right there after 3 takes. So in this case, what I'm doing is we're doing this in order to kind of piece together like kind of a good, maybe a good progression of these little plops that I have going. Okay, so maybe, and then all you need to do is go up and use the draw tool. And the draw tool is important because that gives you the opportunity to select what you want to select. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select here, and then I'm going to find the pieces that I think are going to make a good progression here. So, and then I'll go down here, I'll take this. Then I want this part because it's a little bit thicker here. And you can see what's happening is up here on the main lane, what's happening is it's taking what I am selecting in there. And ultimately in the end, what we'll have is, and I'll take this piece here. And obviously I'm going kind of structured here, bar by bar, but you can definitely chop up things in an interesting way. And the way I love, I've learned to kind of enjoy doing this is you could use the random function that I showed you guys on the macros and just record and keep pounding the random button, and you're going to get these crazy, weird kind of switch ups and something that could be used in an interesting way. So ultimately, what would happen, I've recorded this in. I'm actually going to delete this. Actually, I won't delete this audio from here. I'm just going to mute it. So now I'm going to turn this to auto. So you can see that I've selected these pieces. These are the ones that are selected to create this piece here. So now when this is played, and so imagine, obviously, like a great way to do this if you have a singer just singing vocals, as that loop is going through, they can keep singing it over and over again, and then you can kind of dissect which parts you like and create like a perfect vocal from like each little nuance that's there. And what I like, I'm a sucker for freeze and flattening. After this is done, I can actually freeze this and then flatten this, and it takes all of those takes that I had and brings it into one brand new clip. And then if I want to, I can consolidate that into something brand new like that. So yeah, so that is the comping. And there's so many options for comping, whether it's super practical or super creative. You know, that's going to be up to you to decide. And the last thing that I'm going to show you guys today. Oh yeah, actually one more thing before I get to the last thing. CPU. So you'll see in this case, this instrument where we had the pads playing, you're going to see on the bottom of each track now, you have, and you can toggle to see it or not see it, right on the right-hand side here, you have basically your CPU usage per channel, so, or per track. So you can see as I'm running everything, the heaviest CPU load is working within this channel here with this instrument sitting on top of it. This it's a pretty deep wavetable instrument sitting on top of this one. So so yeah, so everything you can see where your CPU usage is having or where your CPU is having problem, and then you can have a look in here too, and you can see what the current and average CPU is on your machine at the time to give you another kind of good idea. So yeah, so right now it's viewing average, and then I can go over to current here, and I like to keep it on average, but then you could see the readout of both right there. So and that's all configurable, you know, to how you like it. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is right in here, and this is MPE. So in this case, this is another, and this is just kind of a sample sitting on its own here. It doesn't really fit in with this. But what I wanted to show you is you could see if the device has MPE compatibility, as this wavetable does, you can see that there are various things that you can change. So based on velocity, note, slide, and pressure, you can do a lot of really interesting things here. So you can hear, you should be able to hear, okay, this note is being played right now, and but as soon as I add pressure to it, you can see that something is changing there, and that is based on a few of the parameters inside here. So you could really see it in action here when I pull this up. You're going to see what pressure and the big one we're going to be focused on right now is pressure. You're going to see that this is going to be adding pressure, reducing pressure, and adding pressure. So instead of me physically doing it on a key like I am inside a live right now, you can actually draw that in, or using breakpoints or whatever you choose. So you're going to hear that same patch. It's a little bit weird sounding, but you'll get the idea. So you can hear as that pressure is going up and pressure is going down, it's creating something unique. So you can actually create your own expression. You know, before we only really had the opportunity to do that with velocity. Now you can see that there's actually two velocity options, plus pressure and plus slide. So yeah, and that's on 3 of the devices inside Alive, and which are wavetable, sampler, and arpeggiator, and then anything that is MPE compatible outside, which could be something like any VSTs, and even right to my left right now, I have the ASM Hydrosynth, and I know that that has the ability to work with MPE and be programmed through MPE. So so yeah. So basically, those are the new elements of Live 11 in a nutshell. Tried to put into a track as much as I could, and yeah. So I've been talking for a long time. So if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to do so. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, so I can see everyone, and yeah, and I see a chat here or whatever's going on. But yeah, if anybody has any questions or thoughts or anything, let's talk.
Hey, Justin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
All right. Hey, thanks for walking us through that. Really appreciate it. That helped me have some insights that I didn't get from other videos I've seen. One question, I think I know the answer, but can't hurt to ask. Comping in session view. Are there any options for comping in session view, or really is it a matter of doing a long take and then taking that, moving it over to arrangement? chopping that long take down into multiple bits and then laying it out into take lanes.
Yeah, I think that is the way to do it right now. I haven't heard of it being able to be done in session yet, but obviously that would be neat. Because I kind of find when I'm using live, until I start arranging a track, or even while I'm arranging track, arrangement also becomes like kind of my chopping ground too, to be able to split up tracks and whatnot, and kind of my canvas to do that. But yeah, I'm not seeing that ability in session as of yet anyways.
Okay. One other question while I've got you.
Yeah.
What was my other question? Oh, loading macro snapshots. Do you know if there's a way to load your macro snapshots from push?
I do not know that yet. I haven't dove into that yet. But
okay. I was toying with it, but I couldn't find anything. So
yeah, I'll look into that. I'll look into that though, and I'll post it on the in Discord for sure.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Anything else, guys? Any other questions or thoughts? Or sorry about the audio hang up at the beginning there. I really appreciate it. Or I'm sorry for that, but now I know for next time.
I had a few questions, Justin.
Yeah.
Thank you for the session. It was really great. Got a lot of insight about the chance. So, I mean, I have a few questions. One of them is about the chance, the probability. So the probability is attached to the velocity, or is it attached to the note value? So no trigger on and off.
It's yeah, it has nothing to do with velocity. Velocity and chance are independent. Okay. So you can it's interesting because what would be neat is to have a little bit of chance with what notes being played. Like obviously in this case, what's happening is every time when you move the probability, whether using random or whether you're dragging the slider down, yeah, it's literally there's a whatever the probability is, there's that chance of that note playing, but it has nothing. It's independent of velocity. If that answers your question.
Yeah. Secondly, so I used to do this habit with live 10. I would take a random max for live device and then put it on a MIDI, and then basically I would do an incoming MIDI on a separate channel, and then I would let it run for a certain amount of time, and then chop and pick up pieces which I like, basically do selection. So with this, I could basically do the same thing with just randomizing and then doing an output on a separate MIDI channel, and then selecting the parts I want if I want it to be not too unpredictable.
Yeah, and then you could actually combine that with you could actually run. Let's say if you wanted to combine two of the new features, you could run that over let's say 1 minute long span, let's say, and you could keep looping that over and over again, and then using comping, you could actually start piecing together pieces that as well. Like if you don't like that one phrase that's happening, at the 32nd, I'm making up numbers here, but you could actually try to find some. You could either, obviously, you can go and you can edit and cut and splice and place things wherever you want, but you could also use comping to find something that might be more appropriate in that time frame that you've recorded in that random fashion.
Excellent.
Yeah.
With regards to the scale changes, I have a push, and then whenever I need to select a scale, I obviously, especially if I'm improvising, I put the scale, and then it stays globally. This time, let's say if I attach a scale on a certain MIDI track, an A minor, and on another one a G minor, as I switch from that track to another MIDI track, that will be reflected on the push as well. Like I won't have to go globally and change it again.
Yep, that's brand new with Live 11. They're gonna work hand in hand now.
That's excellent. That is so mind changing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
With regards to MPE, I'm still a little confused how MPE is a little different. For example, wavetables had always had the MIDI matrix, right?
Yep.
So how is MPE different from MIDI matrix? I mean, I could always do, for example, if I want to change a pitch based on pressure, I could always do that on push, right? If I press it harder, then the aftertouch would reflect the change in pitch on that specific note value. How is MPE changed in that perspective?
Well, I think the big thing about MPE is that it's standardized, so it can be basically the it goes, obviously what's going to happen soon, I'm assuming, with live is more and more of their instruments are going to have that compatibility, so that, like you're talking about, I'm assuming that MIDI matrix is unique or independent to wavetable, whereas these can actually be across, you know, it's kind of standardized over multiple instruments, right? Like, and that's where that well, push now or that Rolly instrument, you know, will be able to you'll be able to use that, and I believe it's an extension of MIDI where where it'll be standardized, and that, like, whatever you map those either the slide or the pressure to will work on whatever device that that you're plugging it into, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does. It definitely does. But I mean, I was a little confused with that, but it clears it up. So basically, what you're saying is that it reflects more onto other devices like Simpler and Sampler, where MPA has been added, because Simpler and Sampler never had that capability that Wavetable had, and I would always end up using Wavetable for that purpose.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So Sampler has it now. Simpler does not. So yeah. Cool.
Last, it's a very small question now.
Okay.
So the Digitac had this thing where you could attach a probability, a trigger function to each and specific note, or, you know, on a track on a specific place in a sequence. So this probability that we're talking about running is basically like the same way as it is in Digitac.
I assume so. I'm not very familiar with the Digitac, but I'm assuming so. It's literally I think it's like literally just math. It's like, you know, it's rolling dice, and if those you know, if that number, if that, you know, probability comes, obviously if you set your probability or your chance to 98% of time, then 98 out of 100 times that note is going to be played, right? And as you drop it down, you know, I think it wouldn't be, I guess, if yeah, I guess it would kind of work out that way, and the other way too, 2 out of 100 times if it's at 2%, right? So just kind of where you drag it within that. So, and it's cool too, because you can have notes that are playing at 100% every time, and then you know, and then that's what I was trying to show with like those little the closed hat fills. Like, you can create these interesting things that happen, you know, or you could have just a single note, you know, that you have running in an 8-bar loop or a 16-bar loop, that you know, whether it's like some kind of weird evolving pad, and you just have, you know, it runs for 4 bars, and then over the course of a track, you know, it'll play like within that 8 or 16 bars, whatever I said, but the chance of it playing, like, sometimes it's going to be there, sometimes it won't. And I've been listening to a lot of like Robert Hood lately, and his new album on Records is amazing. And but I'm hearing in the background a lot of stuff that I think could be done this way, where it's like, obviously everything that's in front in Robert Hood's music is like the kick drum and heavy percussion, but then what he's got sitting back in a lot of his tracks are these weird kind of evolving pads and like these, you know, Detroit strings or whatever. And sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're like, you know, super thick. And that's where I was trying to get to with when I showed you guys that that kind of paddy chord progression thing, where some, you know, sometimes it's there, and, you know, one time it hits it's a certain way, next time it hits it's a little bit thinner, you know, and obviously when we're talking about that, we're talking about it more from you know, a note modulation, as opposed to like you know, opening up a filter or something like that on it, right? But it's still creating these unique experiences, however long you choose to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the best thing about Live 11 coming, is that when you were performing live before, you were always worried that, you know, everything is way too static if you haven't planned. And then If you need to do things on the fly, then you had to worry about, oh, you know what, this hi-hat is playing for too long, or this bass is. Now you can kind of forget about it by putting probability on it and focus on some other part, just one specific part, and let that roll on its own, which makes it very fun to use, you know. And then obviously in writing tracks, it makes it a lot easier because you have then so many chances of you know, figuring out stuff.
Yeah, and not to mention, I remember when we were exposed to Live 11 for the first time, and like the certified trainers Zoom call that we did, you know, they talked about like, imagine what this is going to do for like ambient music, right? And just
unbelievable.
Yeah, the different things that you can do with it that way to create these textures, and with just probability, with just a chance function, right? So so yeah.
Last question came to me. Sorry, guys, I'm going to be quick about this.
You're good.
The tempo following. I heard Speedy J talk about it in his knob twiddlers function. And then how does it work? So if, let's say, I have a backing track going on, and then I put a tempo following onto a live percussionist, right? Does Ableton automatically switch from, let's say, the kick drum following, which was already programmed in Ableton, onto a live percussionist? Does it automatically go? And how does it affect the warping algorithm? For example, the audio clips that are already playing in the background, which I want to now trail into the tempo following of the live percussionist. Does it mess up the warping algorithm, and how does that work?
Yeah, I'm assuming it would for sure, because and that would have to you know, that would depend on what algorithm you're using for warping, right? I remember even just talking with Sebastian when we were doing our sessions, and he mentioned that you know, he kept everything. Oh, he kept everything on. 1 second.
Complex, I think he said.
Yeah, actually, you know what? He didn't. Yeah, he was on. Yeah, exactly. He was on repitch, and he would select repitch as his option. So literally, it would pitch everything. If it's going down, it would pitch everything down. If it's going up, it would pitch everything up like a turntable would, right? So and then I think you kind of don't lose like, there's not as much artifacts that happen that way, you know. So I don't know. I know that live listens in, and I think I think to be honest, I haven't used that yet, but what happens is live starts to listen in, so it's got to be able to listen in to whatever. So you would have to change it from almost being like a master to a slave in that sense. So I haven't, to be honest, I haven't worked with that yet. So I'd have to look into that more for sure.
Oh, that's all right. But that's a very powerful feature. Thank you, man. Thanks so much.
No worries. My pleasure. Anything else, guys? Think we're good? All right. Well, I appreciate everybody stopping in, and so again, sorry about that. The audio troubles early. I'm gonna check it out, see how bad it is. What I might have to do is kind of re-record this without you guys, and I'm gonna share it, and I'm gonna end up. We'll see what the recording looks like. But if not, I'll share this with you guys, and it's gonna be up on my on YouTube and whatnot. But I'm looking forward to working with everybody that's part of the In Bloom community some more, collaborating on music and collaborating on just bouncing ideas off each other. And I think that's about it. All right. So thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Jay. Have a great day.